Hello and welcome to another episode of r/ProRevenge. My name's Ryan, the official host here on Reddit Voice, and I look forward to bringing you guys today's top stories. Before I do though, you know what to do. Hit that subscribe button and make sure you got notifications turned on, that way you could stay up to date with all the latest and the greatest. I came back from the dead and nuked ex-fiance's life insurance money plans. Throwaway for obvious reasons. So I will start this story by saying that I don't think I'm a good person, and start a story with some collateral damage. But this is a story about one bad person getting revenge on another bad person. Backstory. I, 34 male now, was raised by a single mom because dad passed away when I was younger, but I had many male role models and older brothers, and he left behind a generous life insurance policy, so I largely had a good upbringing. However, I was not ever very social, and from my early teens I spent a lot of time in front of my computer. This habit got worse as I went to college, and it resulted in me spending 80% of my time gaming, working, reading, or whatever on a screen. As a result, I was not very attractive and quite obese at the age of 20. For these reasons, I never really dated and didn't ever lose my virginity until I met my ex-fiance. On top of this, I was raised very religious because my mom became really religious after the death of my father. So I always thought it was a bad idea to play the field. The only thing I had going for me was that I had become somewhat proficient in several coding languages and expanded on these in college. I wouldn't say that I'm a good IT person or coder, but with a little bit of coding knowledge and a lot of creativity, you can create residual income streams. And I had a decent job in IT where I would work from home 3 days a week. At the age of 24, I was still overweight and a social reject, but through my mom, I met a woman from her Bible study that would eventually become ex-fiance, 36 female now. We hit it off and started dating. She had a 2-year-old son at the time and became the only thing in my world that I cared about. It didn't take me long to get physical, LOL. All those years of pretending I was saving myself went out the window when I finally had the chance to lose it. To be honest, she really broke me out of the shell that I had become more sociable within a couple months of meeting her. I even took on a fatherly role for her son, and within 6 months of dating, she got pregnant. Being the religious person I was, I immediately proposed and wanted to marry before the birth of the baby. Then she dropped a bombshell on me. She was still legally married to a guy in prison. This did not bother me too much, as she had always talked about her troubled past, and I thought I'd be the one to save her from it anyways, so I just took it as it came with the territory. She began the divorce proceedings shortly, and we planned to get married as soon as those were finished. I was riding high after the baby was born, and I thought I had really carved a place for myself in the world. I even started losing weight and spent less time online than ever. She was always kind to me, and I thought we let each other know everything we were thinking. Boy, was I wrong. There were a few red flags that I was too love-struck to see. She told me early on that the only reason she got involved with my church was that she was on probation and had a pending court case, and thought it would help her case. Despite me earning a comfortable 6-figure income with side projects and my main IT job, she insisted she keep her part-time job, and my mom had to help me take care of the kids to deal with it. She knew way too many people. Like what suburban mom with a secretarial job has 200 contacts in her phone knows. We kept delaying our marriage due to sick relatives or other issues as well, although she did go through with the divorce to the prison guy. Then something happened that shook me out of her spell. She got pregnant for a second time, and this time with twins. We had only been with each other for 4 years, and we were about to have 4 kids, 2 more than I thought I would ever have. She claimed she was on birth control at the time, so we were not using condoms. Anyways, after the twins were born, I started seeing my doctor about a vasectomy, and my ex-fiance encouraged it. I wanted to get some swimmers frozen before the operation because we could completely change our minds in 5 years. So I go in for the visit and the doctor comes out to tell me that my sperm count was low and they were mostly immobile. But this problem might be temporary and I should try to eat a healthier diet and stuff for a few weeks, then come back. When I came to the second appointment and the same problem arose, the doc started doing some investigating. But you know where this is going. So, the doctor says that it's likely that I'm infertile. This turned out not to be completely true, as I now have a child that I know is biologically mine, but it still propelled the following events. I mentioned that I had 3 biological children and the doctor looked anxious and started talking, but I was in shell shock and didn't really know what he was saying. I think I left the doctor's office before they were even done with me. I didn't even get in my car. I just walked until it started to get dark and eventually called an Uber to get home. My fiance was worried and already asleep inside, and I just lied to her and told her my car broke down. Phone died, and I was at the mechanic late and forgot to let her know. I fell asleep and woke up the next day and immediately got on the computer to research similar stories and started to give myself false hope. The first post I read was about how fertility assessments are not true and I should 100% get a test. I thought this for sure would show the doctor was wrong, but I got the tests back and within a week I knew the kids were not mine. The first person I told was my mom. I went to her house and cried for the first time in my adult life. She consoled me and then told me a story that I was never meant to hear. Essentially, I'm the product of an affair myself and that my dad actually died of an overdose on pain meds after he found out. Well, I don't know why my mom thought this would comfort me, but in reality, it just gave me an unhealthy view of women for a while. After the story and calming down, she insisted that I man up and honor my commitment to these kids, because I'm the only father that these kids have ever known. Up to this point, I had always been a pushover, and I really considered her words to me for about 24 hours before I completely snapped. I called my fiance and told her I had to stay the night at my mom's house because of a family issue, and she offered to make us dinner, to which I declined. At this point, the twins are about 6 months, the boys are about 2.5 years, and 5 years old. I won't lie and say that I felt nothing for these kids, but it was hard to look them in the face, and I knew I was done being their father. I knew this would tear them up and damage them, but I couldn't stand to hear them say "dada" to me, because every time it was like a knife in my heart. I kept my cool and didn't expose anything, and my mom didn't say anything, and I assumed it was because she thought I was manning up. I spoke to an attorney because I wanted to get myself off the birth certificates of these children, and I thought I could seamlessly slip out of the situation because we were not married. Unfortunately, after going through the paperwork and financials, since I had tangled so much of our finances and I took on a fatherly role, I'd be responsible for at least the boy's child support and she would get equity on the house and my side business. Basically, the lawyer said I would likely be on the hook for something like 25% of my income for many years to come. I pretty much ghosted my lawyers after paying them their initial fee because I didn't like the idea of state-enforced cucking. The revenge starts here. I started to make a plan to disappear and leave them all with as little as possible. The start of this was destroying all of my passive income streams and getting myself fired. Getting myself fired was easy, but it got a bit cringe. Basically did some of the stuff from Office Space, smashed an office printer in the courtyard, didn't do anything while working from home except send memes to coworkers, but I didn't do anything for the clients because my boss was actually a friend of mine, but my office mates had a good time watching this. After this, I did eventually try to file for unemployment and began living off of our life savings. My ex-fiance let me handle all of the financials despite both our names being on everything, so she didn't notice our account slowly draining of money and the financials going to chaos because I left her checking account filled with a few thousand. Credit card debt skyrocketed because I stopped paying our cards. I sat there for a few months wondering if I should end it and follow in the footsteps of my would-be father, but ultimately decided against it. I got ancestry test kits for the kids in an effort to find out who their actual father was, because I was going to get them away from my ex, but this resulted in even weirder findings. Essentially, the oldest child was a cousin slash half-brother to his siblings, and so the prison guy's brother must have gotten her pregnant. Also, I didn't see any family members from the test that I thought would be a good fit, so that was the end of that investigation. I also tried to distance myself from my mom, as I had become disgusted by what she did to my dad in her newfound cheater allegiance with my ex. I formulated a plan to get away, far, far away from everything, but just vanishing on a hiking trip, and I really hyped up this hiking trip and claimed I would be in insert location for a week alone with my thoughts in the trails. Before the trip I took the then 6-year-old out for ice cream and cried for the second time in my adult life. The 6-year-old was obviously distraught over seeing his dad cry and started trying to calm me down. I guess I was crying that I had to leave him, and I told him I was sorry a dozen of times, but I think he was just confused about the situation. I was more concerned about losing him, because I knew he was not my child, and I was able to form a bond anyways. I left that afternoon and actually made my way to the lodge and checked in. Now the next part I will mostly skip, because I'm not sure if it was illegal or legal. But to cut 6 months later, I have a new name and live in a new city, where I'm able to restart my IT career, and it was slowly working toward my old income status again. I started taking my ex on Facebook and other social medias. I won't lie, it was cathartic to say the least. The chaos of them trying to get into accounts must have been hell, and she figured out that our comfortable finances were not so comfortable after all. Begging for money on Facebook is so trashy. Once again, I won't mention the legal stuff, but a lot of people went looking for me, and I considered phoning the police to let them know that I was okay. But I decided against it. Eventually, had to pay a hefty fine for this, but it was well worth it. I worked on myself for a long time and got into great shape. Lost my religion and descended into a hedonistic lifestyle. I became unrecognizable. I continued stalking this woman for about a year when I heard she was dating a new guy and got pregnant almost immediately. Of course. My mom was still in her life of taking care of my supposed children, while she was doing God knows what. Then on the 1-year anniversary of me leaving, she posted a memorial page for me. This made me decide that my revenge was not quite done, and I decided to call up my brother and let him know I was alive. My brother and I had drifted over the past 10 years, but he was blood and was always there when I was younger. I told him why I did what I did, and we caught up, and I asked him not to tell anyone yet, so he agreed. But then he told me about how my mom and ex-fiance are suing my insurance company to honor my life insurance. Somehow, she had managed to keep up this policy going, despite its hefty cost. The payout would be substantial, 7 figures, and she would be awarded the premiums that she had paid since my alleged death if she won. Well, I'm not a kind of uncivilized person that would defraud an insurance company, so I started my plans. I drove the 1,000-mile journey to my old city when I heard she had an upcoming hearing and listened to Highway to Hell half the way down. I went to the court early and sat down. Now at this time I had grown a beard, lost 60 pounds, and generally looked good. I looked so different that my fiance and mother passed right by me in the court without giving me a second look. I thought they would be meeting in a big courtroom, and I was already planning to barge in and yell something about objecting and being a cringelord like usual. But they ended up going to a small room with some lawyers from the insurance company. I decided frick it and knocked down the door several times until they opened it. They were all confused to see the scraggly dressed man with a beard, and I simply said, "I believe you're trying to settle this issue of whether or not I'm dead." My ex-fiance realized it was me almost immediately and let out a gasp or something. But my lawyers were just confused. Everyone ended up stepping outside of the room and a whirlwind erupted, and the bailiffs were called over. My ex screamed and slapped me, and they had to actually put handcuffs on her. This was a big deal for the insurance company, I guess, and the lawyer's boss/client started to regret coming, but I gave my statement and didn't really lie about anything. But I was vague about where I was currently living. I ended up staying in town for almost a month, and it was a crazy month in a cheap motel. I showed evidence of my ex's cheating to anyone who cared, and I tried to meet with the kids, but the youngest didn't know me, and the 7-year-old told me to fuck myself, which is fair, I guess. The police were pissed off and started a civil litigation for the costs of searching for me. A detective or something actually flew in from another state to question me. Luckily, this whole time I didn't get arrested for anything, as I didn't want my fingerprints being linked to my new name and such. Essentially, I had to pay a large fine and immediately paid the fine in cash, to the surprise of the police. As far as I was concerned, I was done with this town. My ex-fiance served me a civil lawsuit for multiple different things, and my mom helped, but I was a leaf in the wind long before anything came of it. I'm back in my new city and never plan to go back. I stopped spying on them after a few months of ruining her insurance plans and moved on with my life. This happened some years ago, and I'm much better off now, but I am tired and need to go to sleep. If there's interest, I will let you know what happened with me after all of this. Update! Hello everyone. Thank you for taking interest in my life. I only want to do one update and lay it all out. Mostly, I just wanted to let people know where I went with my life, because a lot of people seem interested. I might answer a few questions in the comments if someone has burning questions. I'm not going to say anything about how to disappear because we can't discuss potential crimes on the board, but look up the case of how Jack Barsky, a former KGB spy, entered the US and obtained credentials. Literally millions of undocumented immigrants do this to be able to work for companies in the US as well. Uncle Sam just wants those taxes paid. I'm not sure about the details of the insurance investigation and how they were looking for me, but I never got so much as a phone call from them before I met them in person. I have no intentions to try and seek revenge anymore, because I believe violent delights have violent ends. Now, as far as I'm concerned, my ex-fiance's life is hard enough, and anything else I did would just hurt the kids. After everything blew up with my ex, I left the town and didn't reach out to my brother anymore, and even stopped checking up on the situation with my ex. Having no family and friends and starting over in this world is lonely and terrifying, but equally exciting and hopeful. So how did I reset my life upon reaching a new city? Well, I had a lot of money in cash that I used to stay in a motel for a few months while I got all my documents in order and looked for work. Because I thought that my home computer would be searched when I went missing, I couldn't really plan much of this stuff beforehand. I realized that without a college degree linked to your name, it was difficult to find a job with my skill set. So I decided to just make my own company and post ads about setting up custom dispatch software, editing videos and presentations, among other tasks. I only received a few different jobs doing this, and it didn't even pay my living expenses. After I did a few jobs for the same company, I made friends with a project manager and got hired at a reasonable salary. To this day, my finances are only about 70% of what I was making before, but I'm happy with what I have. I spent a lot of time finding people with similar stories on the internet and eventually got involved with a men going their own way group. We basically just talked shit about women all the time, and the positive feedback loop made me a pretty resentful/misogynistic person. I went so far as to make fake accounts to harass women online, so I don't want to go into any more details because I'm a bit embarrassed and remorseful now. I got on Tinder and started hooking up with women to make up for lost time. Throwing money around and lying to them became a way of life for me, and I would cheat on basically every woman I got with because I thought they were all doing it too. I got caught and I'd pretend like I didn't understand why they were mad at me until they left or tried to forgive me just to do it again. Not proud of this either. A couple of years ago, one of the women that I was sleeping with regularly got pregnant and came to me all excited with the news. Now, I immediately accused her of cheating and threw her out of my apartment, and there was just a look of shock on her face. Remember, I thought I was infertile, so in my mind, I just put another thought in her place. I continued to mock her for a bit and even messaged my MGTOW buddies about what I did. I openly confessed to cheating on her and showed her proof. I agreed to have a paternity test while she was still pregnant just because I didn't want her to get the courts involved. And I was shocked with the results. I cried and tried to hug her, and she screamed and threw some papers at me and told her she never wanted to see me again. I went home and drank, happy that I was going to be a dad, for real this time, but sad who I had become. Like I said, I don't want you to root for me because I'm not a good person. For the remainder of the pregnancy, she wouldn't even speak to me for long enough to explain my actions. But I totally understand why. When the baby was born, I showed up to the hospital to sign the birth certificate and at the same time met with her lawyer, which turned out to be her sister, to go over child support stuff that we had already spoke about. I went for a Hail Mary and offered to sign any paper they wanted if she would just have coffee with me for 30 minutes to explain things. She wanted full custody and generous payments. I never got a lawyer because I just wanted to make amends and I thought a lawyer would throw up obstacles to try and protect me or my finances. I met with her for coffee and to my surprise she let me speak uninterrupted for almost 20 minutes. I didn't completely tell her the truth about my past, but she understood why I wanted a paternity test. But it didn't excuse my behavior in mocking her, throwing her out, and cheating. I signed the papers, but begged her to let me see my daughter and be a part of her life. She said that I was unstable and that I needed insensitive therapy before that would ever happen. Of course, I obliged to the therapy. I learned a lot in therapy and did a lot of research about the fallout of cheating and whatnot. Turns out there's a lot of women who have been hurt by cheaters and homewreckers too, and that my view of women was toxic to say the least. I cut it off with my MGTOW buddies because I thought that atmosphere would be a detriment to my progress. I don't want to attack the group because I think there are some good people in that group who are just broken and looking for answers. I think having a baby girl was a real punch in the gut to stop treating women so poorly. I was finally able to see my daughter when she was 7 months old again and began supervised visits every other weekend. I had dutifully paid the child support and made every attempt to talk to her mother and try to make amends. One night after our daughter, we got drunk and started kissing, which turned into sex. When we woke up the next morning, she was embarrassed and just asked me to leave. But she made it seem like she kind of wanted things to work. It took a long time, but we moved in together after she lost her job due to the virus, and we're currently living together. Her family hates me, and this has held us back from marriage talk or anything. Hell, I skipped our daughter's second birthday celebration because her lawyer sister didn't want to see me. I hope this turns out well for me, and I already know I have better than what I deserve. For now, the pandemic has me working from home and my girl takes care of our daughter and makes me food and such. She's still suspicious of me and comes into my office to see what I'm doing regularly, but I don't mind. For now, I'm just going to try to be there for my daughter and make up for her mom. I'm still trying to think of things I can do or say, but for now, I'm in Zoom therapy and doing my best. I don't think I can ever really tell anyone everything, which is why I decided to tell the strangers of Reddit. I'm sorry to those people that thought I was a hero in my initial post. Please don't let your hatred boil inside you, friends. I almost missed out on something great, and I may still miss out if I'm not careful. This is going to be the only update unless I come back years from now to tell you all what happened. Best of luck to everyone. Small edit, someone corrected me that the spy I was thinking of was Jack Barsky, not Yuri Bezmenov. And there you have it, folks. I firmly salute you if you made it to the end of this particularly long video. If you liked it, be sure to leave a like as well as subscribe with notifications turned on. That way you could stay up to date with all the latest and the greatest. As always, my name's Ryan, the official host here on Reddit Voice, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video.